What do the Taj Mahal, a whirling dervish, and this poet have in common? They are all part of a cultural tradition that produced a type of poetry called a ghazal. Let's talk about ghazals, and along the way, we'll have a conversation about how to read poetry in translation. A ghazal is a form of poetry that developed in the Arabic language. It is similar to the sonnet in that it is usually a short poem, though length may vary, and like sonnets, ghazals are often about love, either romantic love or religious devotion. The basic unit of the ghazal is a couplet, and these couplets are connected by an interlacing rhyme pattern that gives the poem its structure. Let me show you how. In English, a couplet is a pair of lines that rhyme with each other. In a 10-line poem made of couplets, the rhyme pattern would look like this. The first two lines rhyme, then two more rhyming lines, and two more, and so on. In a ghazal, the couplet is unified around a single idea, with both lines together expressing a complete thought. The rhyme pattern is used to connect the couplets together into coherent structure. A 10-line ghazal has a rhyme pattern that looks like this. Notice that while each couplet is a distinct thought or idea, the rhyme is linking each couplet to the others. The analogy often used is that the ghazal is like a pearl necklace. Each couplet is the pearl of an idea, and the rhyme pattern is the thread woven through them. The lines are also unified by having the same meter and the same number of syllables. The art of the ghazal is in following this pattern of repetition and refrain while adding layers of meaning. So, where did this type of poetry come from, and why does it matter? The ghazal comes out of a poetic tradition in Arabic that existed before Islam, but the form has come to be associated with distinct cultures and languages within the Muslim world. We said that the ghazal is used to express love or religious devotion. It often relies on ambiguity or double meanings, and this makes it particularly well suited as an expression of spirituality. One of the most famous writers of ghazals was the great Persian poet Rumi, who lived in the 13th century. In addition to poetry, Rumi also wrote prose and was a scholar of Sufism, a mystical practice within Islam that seeks purification of the self through imitating the Prophet Muhammad and internalizing the teachings of the Quran. Sufism embraces a variety of ascetic practices intended to reject the world and seek the inner light of the divine. Sufis are perhaps most famous for the whirling dance practiced by dervishes as a form of meditation. It should not be surprising, then, that a Sufi poet would embrace the ghazal as a form of spiritual expression, with its layers of meaning and tight structure of interconnected ideas. In the 16th century, the Mughal Empire arose in South Asia, and at its height included parts of Afghanistan, Kashmir, Bangladesh, and India. Early in the history of the Mughals, close ties to Persia led to widespread influence of Persian culture and religion throughout the empire. The Mughals were religiously diverse, with adherents of Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity, though Islam was the religion of the empire's rulers. The influence of Persian culture can be seen in Mughal architecture, of which the Taj Mahal is the most famous example, and in Mughal court poetry, which featured some of the greatest writers of the Ghazal. One of the last great Mughal poets was Mirza Ghalib, who was born into the waning days of the empire in the late 1700s and lived to see the Mughal Empire collapse and be replaced by British governance. As might be expected from someone who lived in such a diverse society, Ghalib's family had ties to Uzbekistan and Kashmir. Though he spoke both Persian and Arabic, Ghalib's first language and the language of his most famous writings was Urdu, which is spoken in Pakistan and parts of India. Urdu has its own particular tradition of the ghazal, with a stock of common characters and metaphors. Urdu ghazals are also meant to be performed for an audience and may be sung or chanted. Ghalib expanded this tradition by using the ghazal not just for love poems, but as a way to explore a variety of topics and themes. One important feature of his work is its reflection of the tumultuous era of history in which he lived. Ghalib was also a devout practitioner of Islam, and many of his poems have religious themes. One difficulty of reading ghazals in an English class is simply the problem of reading poetry in translation. The artistry of poetry often relies on the sounds of words and on features of language such as puns or ambiguous meanings that are lost in translation. Sometimes translators will try to preserve the structure of a poem by making it rhyme in English as it rhymed in its original language. This frequently comes at the expense of meaning, which may be relaxed or changed in order to make a rhyme scheme work. For this reason, poetic translation often abandons certain poetic features of the original in favor of sticking as close to the meaning of the original as possible. When you are reading poems in translation, it's a good idea to learn something about the structure of the poem before you read it. You will probably find yourself focusing on the imagery of the poem as well as symbolism and themes. While features of the language are often lost in translation, the meaning of a poem becomes all the more important because the translated poem is sharing ideas, not just from one person to another, but from one culture to another. There will be feelings and experiences that are common to all humanity, but there will also be experiences or points of view that are unique to the culture of the writer. We learn more about humanity and ourselves from seeing the world through these other perspectives. By unlocking the Ghazal, we glimpse the passions and ideas of a great empire of the past, but we also gain an appreciation for modern writers who still use this form. While the structure of the Ghazal is unique to West and Central Asia, the use of rhyme, meter, and double meanings shows us that art often has features that are shared across the boundaries of time and geography.